He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the first Alex Marlow Show of 2025. Thanks to all of you sending me emails, aloha@alexmarlow.com. Liking the show, commenting wherever you can, but most importantly, telling 10,000 friends and family members. Seems like we're getting some momentum going. But I got to say, that's the big project for the year for me, and I got a bunch of projects. We'll get to some of those. I'll do some New Year's resolutions towards the end of the show, but I do hope all of you had a fun New Year's Eve. Do you guys do anything cool? You can always tell me what you do. I like to hear what people are like in their daily lives. It always makes me feel like I'm a part of your lives even more than I am. It's a big honor when you throw in your headphones and you listen to a show, and I like to get to know who's out there. We had a very funny New Year's Eve at the Marlow household. I insisted on cooking, which I wanted to do, and I planned everything pretty well. I did the Japanese sweet potato fries, which was pretty cool, and I got those things boiled early in the day, so they're fork tender, throw them in the freezer, and so they're all ready to go. So you just got to do the finishing touches, which is doing the deep fry. I got the ribeye going. The ribeye is the fattier cut. Like, I'm trying to stay lean, so I don't always go with the ribeye, but they're just a gorgeous one at the local market. Pick that out, use my favorite habanero seasoning. So everything was shaping up to be a great night, and I'm cleaning up at the end of the night, and Mrs. Dr. Marlow dawns on her that she's got until midnight to complete corporate sexual harassment and other harassment training for her work. Just unbelievable. Part of what it's like to work for a corporation. I don't know. Is Salem going to make me do that, Misty? I sure hope not. I think I'm a contractor of some sort. I don't think I count enough. So anyway, I hope I don't have to go through any of that. But we spent all of New Year's Eve. I was just amusing myself while Mrs. Dr. Marlow completed harassment training so she didn't get her pay docked by midnight. But we made it fun. We're of a certain age, I think, where the stakes were pretty low. It was either that or TV. So, but I did find that interesting, especially during the sexual harassment part where Mrs. Dr. Marlow, who married her high school sweetheart, who she met 21 years ago. I don't think she's a great candidate for having to go through that. And we're all too busy to just put our foot down and say, no, we are not going to be doing this. We are not going to engage in this ritual where we let the corporations treat us all like criminals. Double board certified doctor, who has had the same steady since he was a junior in high school. Doesn't make any sense. She's not going to sexually harass anyone, guys. So embarrassing as a country that we went down this road. Hey, maybe Vivek's right. Maybe that's the mediocre era that we're in. Too much sexual harassment training. All right. So we had that going, and it just took forever for her. Poor thing. And then we fell asleep, and I think we wished each other Happy New Year about 12:13 in the morning. I was already sleeping by then, but it was fun. Did you guys make it to midnight? That's if I polled this group, I'll know exactly how old the audience is, because that's a young man's game, making it all the way to midnight. The only time I'm working past midnight, I'm up past midnight now, is if I'm working. I think that's pretty much it. I was up late last night. Big research project for one of the big events for the year that I'm working on. Don't want to dawdle too much. I want to get into the news because you guys all want to hear what I think is going on, I'm sure, with the terror. Let's start with New Orleans. So just after 3 a.m., we see a clear terror attack. 15 people killed, dozens wounded. The suspect, who's dead now, identified as Shamsu Din Jabbar, 42. Interestingly, American. So American. From Houston, converted to Islam when he was young and became radicalized. And he drove a Ford F-150 Lightning pickup into a crowd on Bourbon Street. Lot of symbolism here that you can see. Bourbon Street is a place known for its debauchery and its sinfulness. So you can bet that was intentional. Joel Pollack was just pointing this out to me in the Breitbart Fight Club today. If you want additional content on this, the Breitbart app, get the premium membership. And I do an interview over there every day, Breitbart Confidential. It's sort of in a way a companion to this show. So if you like this show, I would definitely go over there and subscribe and go get that. I'm talking to Joel Pollack about that. And he was talking about Andrew Breitbart, reminded me that Andrew, when he went to Tulane University in New Orleans, he was talking about in a documentary on Andrew about how Bourbon Street destroys your moral defenses. So it's just too fun that unless you have a strong moral character, then it does eat you alive spiritually. And Andrew talked about this. So that was the site of the attack. 15 people died. It's important to acknowledge the victims. And we spend a lot of time on the bad guys and not a lot of time on the good guys. And I'm going to be a hypocrite because I'm going to spend way more time on the bad guy today than the good guys. But we have a lot of reporting at Breitbart on this. An aspiring nurse, a football star, a single mother, a father of two. All these people are just of who we know so far. 18-year-old dreaming of becoming a nurse, a former Princeton football star. Sad stuff. Just terrible stuff. All these people died unnecessarily. And not just from the radical Islamic extremism, one of the most horrible ideologies ever to exist, but there's more to it, unfortunately, that we're going to unpack throughout the show and probably throughout the next few days or weeks as we learn more. But these terrorists died in a shootout with police afterwards. He created a couple of improvised explosive devices, IEDs, and those were not deployed, thank God, not detonated, but they were there. So, but things could have gotten much worse. Obviously, the time of day was intentional early in the morning on New Year's Eve. So, not like there's the point to be made that's legitimate. But more interesting things here is to know that this is a person who was a veteran, served in the army, toured in Afghanistan, and is noteworthy because there's connective tissue with the Tesla terror attack at the Trump Tower that we'll talk about in a second. But he lived in an Islamic enclave of Houston, where this is where immigration really is a factor. You want to act like it's not because he was here, but he got radicalized here and he lived in this enclave with a bunch of people who were immigrants and were clearly radicalized. So that's where when you have people come in and they don't assimilate to the culture and they just balkanize. And it's not even becoming like a salad bowl versus a melting pot. It's really one of those school cafeteria or prison trays. I got to be honest, my 1-year-old uses these trays too, where they got the plate sectioned off. So these groups section off. Like these people come in the country, immigrants often. Many of them assimilate. You go to my neighborhood, you see beautiful assimilation, but that's not always the case. A lot of times they do balkanize themselves. They segregate themselves. And it sounds like he lived in one of those areas, and he had a mosque that he attended that is now referring people to CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, which is a very disturbing history. They were supporters of the San Bernardino terrorists. They ran defense on them. They had members who spoke not negatively, shall we say. I want to be careful here with my words. After the 10/7 terror attack that in Israel involved all the mass rapes, the hostages still captured to this day. So they've really legitimized radical Islamic extremism and has helped defend them in a legal sense as well. So they have a terrible track record, which we've documented in great detail at Breitbart News. I don't need to go through all of it in case it's redundant for many of you, which it probably is. But a bad group of people who have helped out terrorist sympathizers at a minimum in the past. And so we got this guy who comes in, he's got an ISIS flag on his truck that he's driving through, but there's not necessarily evidence he's connected to some sort of broader Islamic plot. We're not seeing that yet. So, but it's someone who had military service and had an ISIS flag. And here is where things start getting weird. You start realizing that there are certain things that were a problem. So one of the part of Bourbon Street that he targeted, they were supposed to be steel bollards that were in place to block this exact sort of thing, or any sort of general car racing through, loses control, drunk driver, stuff like that. It happens all the time, I'm sad to say. But they were supposed to be steel bollards that were up to prevent this sort of thing, and they weren't there because they're being renovated. Noteworthy and disturbing. So then we see the FBI comes out right away and says not a terror attack. So he'd planted IEDs that were homemade, didn't get detonated, had the ISIS flag. So obviously there's an ideological component to it. Frances Martell has noted to us at Breitbart this morning when I was talking to her about it. ISIS has not been vocal about this, so I don't know if it's some sort of bigger terror cell that's operating in the United States. We don't know yet. But it is against the law to have alliances with foreign terror organization, and he's got flying the flag. So it is that the FBI rushed out to try to tamp down this could be terrorism when it clearly is terrorism. Is just really makes you think that we've just completely lost the plot here. What's going on? So it wasn't the only terror attack. A perpetrator known as Matthew Livelsberger, 37, of Ohio and Colorado Springs, active duty Army on leave, serving the special forces. He blew up a Cybertruck made by Tesla, Elon Musk, in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, which is not on the Las Vegas Strip. It's very centrally located. Trump has got a real eye for where to put real estate. Any of you who have been to Vegas, we've seen the footage of this, and it's quite bizarre in the sense that no one died but Livelsberger. And it is noteworthy that the Tesla truck survived the blast in a fairly impressive way. So, of course, when you hear about a Tesla blew up, you think, oh, well, it must have been a battery fire. But then you realize that Tesla blew up in front of Trump Tower. Then you think, okay, well, maybe this is something intentional. And then you see that the truck did very well and contained the explosion, it seemed like, and now it gets really weird. So I don't know what that's about. But the truck did great, and Musk was able to ride that on social media. Ever the marketer was able to use a terror attack using one of his trucks to actually make it a good day for Tesla. It's impressive. The thing really stood up to the blast. But this is an amazing thing because you got an Army veteran and who was active duty. Same rental company, something called Turo, which is the Airbnb for trucks. So I note this because we're just going to get more surveillance now. We already know that with Musk, the Teslas are surveilled. He knows exactly where every car is going, it appears. That seems to be the gist of what we got out of what's been the discussion online for the last 24 hours is that we're going to be able to track exactly where this truck was at all times to get more information on this individual. So we're looking down the barrel at more surveillance. So, but it's noteworthy that these people not only use the same app, but they serve the same base. It's unclear at this point if they knew each other. It's unclear what their direct motives were. This guy, Livelsberger's wife, was apparently very anti-Trump and online. I have no idea if that's a factor at all. It's just a data point that we have. So it is, your mind starts going towards what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Tomorrow, on Friday, we get the new Congress. We have a lot of previews up for you at Breitbart News. We're looking at this with great anticipation. The 119th Congress is going to begin, starts with the speaker election, and then we're going to get into the confirmation hearings. The confirmation hearings, I think, probably are looking better because you look at the FBI's role in this, which was to run out and say this is not terrorism when it clearly was. It starts making you think, well, how are they going to object to Kash Patel wants to overhaul the whole thing? All right, so here's a clip of the FBI. Here is what we saw from the FBI and the immediate aftermath of this attack.
Patrick said we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if it's a viable device or not.
Okay, so it's not a terrorist event. Of course it's a terrorist event. So why would this individual say this? I didn't bother to look up who this person is, which says something. Not impressive. And to go out and say something like that, which is not true, it's fundamentally not true. It's obviously terrorism. And why would the FBI lie like this to us? It speaks to a deep ideological problem, but it also speaks to a competence issue. Let's continue.
Lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if it's a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on.
Okay, so that's the message. It was the IEDs that did it, not the ideology. Why? We know they're woke, but that's just so over the top. You saw in the media, it was very common. People were fond of pointing out that it was the automobile was to blame for this. The car rams into people on Bourbon Street, not radical Islamic terrorist does it. So there's just a fear to call out the ideology for some reason. I thought we gotten past this. Are we still hung up on this? It is noteworthy. A lot of people online are suspecting that DEI is a factor in some of the FBI's incompetence. It is a vast array of colors and shapes and sizes of the FBI folks who are present in the shot. The woman who's speaking now happens to be black. She's got a nose ring, which is frowned upon. It's not against the rules. I looked this up. Some of you were suggesting to me it's against the rules for the FBI. It's not, but it is frowned upon to have, facial piercings and stuff, just stylistic stuff like that. You're supposed to be trying to keep the country safe from terrorism. Folks, pay attention because this is as serious as it gets. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are racing to lock in radical policies before Trump takes office in January. They're not just winding stuff down, they're cementing their control. Biden's already signed Executive Order 14067, and banks are actively testing a government-controlled digital dollar right now. You've heard me talk about this on the show. This isn't about modernizing currency, it's about total control. They want to track every dollar you earn, save, and spend, every single one. And here's the kicker. Once this system is fully implemented, it'll be nearly impossible for Trump to undo it. The radical left and their global elite allies will have a permanent grip on your financial life long after they're out of power. Trump's called this a dangerous threat to freedom, and J.D. Vance warns it could mean total government control over your finances. Folks, this is real and it's happening right now, but you're not powerless. That's why my friends at Priority Gold have created a free wealth preservation guide to help you fight back. It lays out 3 critical steps to shield your savings from this overreach. Text FREEDOM to 24999 right now to get your guide. That's FREEDOM to 24999 or visit PriorityGold.com. Don't wait. Text FREEDOM to 24999 today and shield what's yours. So why would they want to hide this? That is the question, and that's why Kash Patel's got to get in right away. Do not hold up the confirmation. Get him in, clean house, let's start over. The FBI was the last standing cool element of the U.S. government. It was the only one where in popular culture we thought the FBI was cool. It has fallen so far under Christopher Wray, who has emphasized DEI, among other things, but not competence. Ann Kirkpatrick, who is the superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department, is getting a lot of attention. And her appearance is part of it. She's a 60-something-year-old woman who's diminutive. She's very small. And she does not strike a very intimidating pose. But that's not really the problem. It's noteworthy because it's just interesting to see it. But she was fired by the city of Oakland as police chief. She was fired without cause after a unanimous vote in 2017, February. First female police chief of Oakland. And they kicked her out for being terrible at her job. Unanimously. Closed door meeting. So she lost her job as police chief because she was no good of Oakland. So they put her in charge of New Orleans. And I'm being told that the local police, it's not really the problem to this point. But can we be reassured that we're doing anything smart? We can't. The House Judiciary Committee pretty recently put out a report. I'm not saying exactly when it was, but it's pretty recent, showing that the FBI agents had their candidates are seeing significant physical fitness deficits, questionable academic qualifications, and are still getting admitted. The drug policy for applicants has been liberalized, allowing individuals with histories of substance abuse to join the Bureau. Supervisors are pressured to advance candidates who fail basic requirements, including fitness tests and English proficiency, to meet DEI goals. How is this making us safer? The number one goal is to keep us safe. And the media's number one goal is to keep us informed. It's not to tell us that this isn't exactly what we know it to be. Okay, the reason I bring up the media is because if you saw the media, you would think that the car was responsible with the terrorists, or maybe it's even right-wing extremists who did the terrorism. Here's a clip of Ken Delanian, who's a favorite punching bag of the right on Twitter on NBC, talking about reporting on the situation.
The FBI director and others, Lester, have been saying for some time that the threat from ISIS-inspired terror attacks is greater than it's been in a long time, particularly post-October 7th, in light of the controversy over the war in Gaza and people being inflamed across the Middle East about that. You also have a situation where political violence in the United States is increasingly a risk, and more people are turning to extremist ideologies, whether it's ISIS or whether it's people who don't like healthcare executives or whether it's far-right extremism. So you have a
You guys got that? It's extremist ideologies. So we got the one crazy guy who killed the healthcare executive. And then we've got far-right extremism. I don't know, when was the last far-right extremist attack? When was that? Probably, he's thinking Charlottesville, which was, how many years ago was that now? Or 7, 8 years? Say, when the worst terror attack in American history, where one white guy killed one white woman. It's how is far-right extremism involved in a guy with an ISIS flag running over a bunch of revelers on New Year's Eve? Only people at bubbled at NBC would come up with something so stupid. Or no, maybe the whole media would do it. Let's see if he recuperates.
You have a confluence of risk factors here, but what counterterrorism officials are saying is they are very concerned. A few years ago, they were telling us that the threat from Islamic-inspired terrorism had greatly diminished, and that was true. And remember, of course, they defeated the ISIS caliphate in the Middle East. But the movement is not dead. It's out there, and it's online, and radicalized individuals in the United States are susceptible to being inspired by it, and that's what appears to have happened here, although we need to learn more about exactly this man's path.
All right, well, it's not a super impressive report, but the rest of it seemed okay. We got to be aware of it. If this movement is going to grow, because we are could have to do with immigration, importing a lot of people. Allowing people to come in and not assimilate, not encouraging them to assimilate. That could be a factor. The October the 7th, whenever terrorists achieve their targets, it does speak to people who are lost. So we got to keep an eye on it, but there's no real evidence that this is a coordinated thing yet. So we'll keep an eye on that. I am nervous, though, heading into the inauguration if we are going to see a rash of violence. So we saw a lot of violence over New Year's Eve in Europe. So it does happen in the West. It's not just here in the United States. Trump is going to hold a MAGA rally in Washington, D.C. ahead of the inauguration, which is very cool. I think it's cool for a number of reasons. Joel Pollack was pointing this out to me again on our Breitbart Confidential interview, where he reminded me that prior to the inauguration in 2016, Trump had held meetings with really high-level donors. This is part of his co-opt the establishment approach. It was even before he got sworn in, he was talking to the big money people, the people that had power and control over the Republican Party for so many years. Those were the people who he was consorting with right before the inauguration. And then, of course, a portion of his administration got off to a terrible foot. He assembled a terrible cabinet and then ended up trying and failing to pursue healthcare reform instead of closing the border. He learned a lot of his lessons, but we got to remember that it started off on a bad foot. So so now he wants to do a MAGA rally. I love that. But now is it safe? And now can people go? And that's the question. And do we trust the FBI, et cetera, to get on top of stuff, keep us safe if we're going to go? Like I tell you, I'm sure our friends will go now that we know about this MAGA rally. Bet I'll have a lot of friends there. I would like for them to be safe. So to be the Washington Wizards Arena, what do we call this place? Anyway, the Capital One Arena, that's what they're calling it in D.C. It should be cool. Inauguration is going to be really cool. We hope. Can't wait to see that speech. I wonder what he's got cooked up for that inaugural speech. I loved his first inaugural speech. It was very hardcore. Anyway, so I'm hoping we can get on top of stuff by then, but you don't know. Could we be in for a new normal? in summation, we don't know whether or not these things are connected yet. It seems unlikely. We don't hope that this could maybe put the Pete Hegseths and the Kash Patels on a better glide path. And we got to be on the lookout for these pockets where people could get radicalized, and we got to crack down on them and focus on that, not on DEI, not on hiring incompetent people because they fit some sort of a standard that doesn't have to do with excellence. This Airbnb app, Turo, is going to face a lot of scrutiny, and it's just going to perhaps lead to a bigger surveillance state, which of course helps all the deep staters and these tech contractors and big tech, and all the bad guys are going to benefit from this stuff. That's a shame. All right. So we don't know if these guys even had any help, but the FBI trying to cover it up was very strange and disconcerting. Another thing that was disconcerting is hundreds marching for the Intifada in New York City hours after the attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas, of course. Really disturbing stuff. Pro-Palestinian protests blocking 6th Avenue in New York. You're supposed to have permits for this stuff, so I don't know if these people were permitted, if this was a long time coming. But you would guess as of late that New York wouldn't crack down on stuff like this. Seems like Adams is starting to get the picture, but New York has got a track record of allowing some of this left-wing stuff to happen. So right after, this was the appropriate response to a lot of the Hamas sympathizers. So go out there right after an ISIS-connected attack, killing 15 people. We don't even know what's going on with the Tesla Cybertruck, and they block 6th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan for a pro-Palestinian protest, which we know what that means, pro-Hamas protests. So, okay, don't need the DEI stuff. We need the competence back. All right, aloha at alexmarlow.com if you want to be a part of the show. Joe Biden spoke about this. I'm curious to see how he did, because he's not going to be president for much longer. This has been a lifelong goal. He's wanted to be president for over 100 years, and he's been president for a while. Let's see how he handled himself in one of his last moments to shine as president of the United States.
At the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, including the FBI, for working nonstop to investigate this heinous act. The FBI is leading the investigation to determine what happened, why it happened, whether there was any continuing threat to public safety. Here's what we know so far. The FBI has reported to me the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack. Possible explosives were found in the vehicle as well.
Yeah, if anyone's watching the streams, you would have seen me actually smile there, because Biden helped me there, because he points out that he'd posted videos online. I should have made that point earlier. So if he's posting videos online, then why wasn't the FBI aware of this? What are they doing? They're just trying to wokeify stuff, or are they dedicated to actually, or just investigating conservatives? What's the plan? Well, what's their goal? You would think their goal would be to figure out people are posting this stuff online, make sure we get to them before they ram trucks through Bourbon Street while it's under construction. All right, I want to play the very end of this Biden clip because he does not take a lot of questions. Let's see how this goes.
Including whether there's any possible connection with the attack in New Orleans. Thus far, there's nothing to report on that. This history. And I know we'll see it again in the days and weeks ahead. May God bless the people of New Orleans. May God bless our police and our first responders. May God protect our troops. And we'll keep you fully, contemporaneously informed. Thank you.
Have you spoken to President Trump?
Are you concerned about more attacks?
Have you spoken to President Trump?
Investigated as a terror attack?
Doesn't take any questions, walks off the stage, and the most relevant question was asked. Have you spoken to President Trump? Isn't that what we all want to know? Has he spoken to the president-elect who's about to be sworn in so we can get on top of this if there's going to be a big problem? We don't know at this time if this is some sort of big coordinated thing, a cell operating inside of the United States. And he has a stiff gait and his hair plugs, and he walks off stage. I will say, ridiculously sharp suit. Snappy dresser. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. Trump called him the worst president in history after that attack. Cool. I dig it. No wonder they didn't talk. All right. Columbia professor who celebrated October the 7th to teach course on Zionism. That's what's happening in our universities. So if you want to know why we're getting mediocre, according to Vivek, is this stuff. Is it people pay, what is it? How much does Columbia cost a year now? 80, 90 grand to go? And for 1 year, and then you can learn about Zionism from a guy who thought the Hamas attacks in Israel was a good thing. So that's where we're at. All right. Other news. Joe Biden is going to award Liz Cheney a Presidential Citizens Medal. So the FBI is going to look into her for sure, you would think, if Kash Patel gets through. But I love it. I love just the embrace of the neocons. It's just such an unpopular ideology. The forever wars. We got to fight in wars around the world. We got a nation build. We got to export democracy all around the world. All that stuff is so unpopular. The people who have used government contracts to get rich, like the Cheney family did, all that stuff, it's so out of fashion. So it is anyone responsible for that J6 kangaroo court need to turn over every stone there. All right, let's see. Abortion, the leading global cause of death in 2024 with over 45 million killed, Tom Williams writes for us at Breitbart News. If you count abortion as murder, then you have to note that. Over 45 million around the world getting aborted every year. We need a spiritual reawakening. We need to be able to have some of these tough discussions. That number is way too high, right? Would you start with that if you were talking to someone who thinks they're pro-abortion? Because they always start with the most extreme example so that they can find one individual to highlight the DNC every 4 years who, got raped by an in-law or something when they were a child. Well, is there 45 million of those, or is a lot of it just vanity? A lot of it that we're losing touch with the most important thing in life, which is life itself and the ability to create life. Here's one that's fun for this audience. Researchers funded by Bill Gates turned mosquitoes into flying syringes to deliver vaccines. This was a story that I saw and I thought, this is Babylon Bee. This is someone making a joke online. This is just some conspiracy online. This is QAnon. Well, researchers at Leiden University Medical Center, backed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have developed a new method of delivering malaria vaccines using genetically modified mosquitoes as flying vaccinators. It sounds like a sci-fi plot, but it's not. New England Journal of Medicine had a report on this. Scientists demonstrating the effectiveness of using mosquitoes. You basically, I guess, get the vax in the mosquitoes, and mosquitoes go and bite the people. You got to give them credit for thinking outside the box. Like, well, what's really injecting people more often than mosquitoes? Can we get some pharmaceuticals in there? I'll tell you, if anyone can do it, it's going to be Bill and Melinda Gates. Pretty creepy stuff, right? Does it get creepier than that? Hard to believe that's real, and yet it's very, very real. One thing that's easy to believe that's real is Starbucks has confirmed permanent closure of a popular location at Pike Place Market. This is in Seattle, where Starbucks originated. You guys may have heard the Pike Place blend. And I got a kick out of this. I caught this on the Citizen Free Press website. They posted this over there. And I got such a kick out of watching the video of the news report from the local Seattle news that they have. This is their Como News, which is their big local news outlet. They interviewed some people about why Starbucks closed. Starbucks said it was just a normal thing, happens all the time. But I want you to play this report. I want to hear you to hear this report.
Yeah, Preston, and this store closure is really such a big surprise. There was no warning to anyone. Today, people just showed up. The door was locked, the signs were removed, and the windows were blacked out.
It's often the first stop for tourists visiting the historic Pike Place Market. The first in Pike Starbucks, now closed until further notice.
I know it's like the height of the tourist season and they closed it.
With no warning, the logos removed, the door locked, and the windows blacked out. Starbucks claims the sudden closure isn't tied to safety concerns. However, frequent visitors tell me otherwise.
Some people have been going to the bathroom in front of the door, and I think they don't like that.
Some people have been going to the bathroom in front of the door, and I think they don't like that. Is that an early nominee for Clip of the Year, Misty? We're 33 minutes into the first broadcast of the year. So early nominee. Yeah, I would imagine if I was a business owner, if we felt like there was no legal way to stop the people from going to the bathroom in front of the store, that maybe it might be time to move to a new store, get a new location. It's so unpleasant. If you think about the coffee experience, I mean, aren't the aromatics supposed to be a big part of it? I'm a big coffee guy. I had the best coffee today. I took the espresso shot, and I got my pull dialed in right now. It's just perfect. Got my dark roast, and what I do is I'll make sort of a red eye, but I'll do it with the cold brew. And I got a name for it. I call it the brown eye. I do. That's what I call it. It's a joke. You guys, some of you will find that too vulgar, but that's the joke. And you dump that espresso shot in the cold brew. It's so good. But the aromatics are a part of it. And if someone's taking a dump right outside of the coffee shop, then it's going to take away from the experience. But even Starbucks won't admit it. I wish Starbucks would just have the guts to just say, here's the deal. Seattle, we love Seattle. We only have the best Seattle. They got to stop this or else we can't run a business here. I yearn for that level of clarity in society and that level of honesty amongst ourselves. January 20th is the day, and Washington, D.C. is the place. That's when and where Donald Trump will be inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. He gets a whole new inauguration. It was already 45th. Now it'll be 47. And we want to send you there. You can win a once-in-a-lifetime VIP experience to attend the inauguration in Washington, D.C. It includes airfare for you and a guest to Washington, a 3-night stay in our nation's capital, tickets for the presidential inauguration, and much more. Don't miss this historic opportunity to celebrate the greatness, the history, the excitement of a presidential inauguration. To enter, you see the link in the show notes for this episode, or go to SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. Guys, I've said that this is the marquee event on anyone's social calendar for the year, really for the decade for most people. And you get a chance to go. I don't see why you wouldn't give it a shot. Salem Podcast Network/Trump. All you got to do, and you'll get your name on the list. And let's see if you can win. I hope you do. All right, aloha@alexmarlow.com. If you want to email me, I always appreciate it. I got a lot of email. I'm going to read some of them, but today we'll do something a little different because I want to do some New Year's resolutions with all of you. Or should I save some of those for tomorrow? That's an interesting call. Should I do New Year's resolutions tomorrow? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll save it because I got some good ones. I already teased one for all of you that I got to get my hair in order. That's a big deal, getting my hair in order, because I'm on camera a lot. One of you emailed me and suggested that I get a sense of style, that I need my own style, like Tucker's got a style. But here's the thing, is that I like the idea of intentionally picking a look and sticking with it so people associate you with it. It definitely is cool branding. Trump's got his power suit with the silken tie, gets a long tie. It's a great look. It works out. It's not always sartorially perfect if you look into the history of male fashion, but it definitely sends a message. It's a good message. Generally looks good. And then you think about some people, even in broadcasting now, they got their own look. Like Bongino's always going to wear a tight shirt. It's always going to happen. You're always going to know it's really him because he's wearing a tight shirt. And Tucker's doing the flannel thing. And this emailer liked the Tucker flannel. And I'm cool with it because it sends a vibe that Tucker is having a dinner table conversation at his house. That's how his show works. And so I got to come up with this, and I understand that those of you who watch on the streams, I'm trying to come up with sort of like an elevated type casual look, because if I wear the jacket, then I often feel compelled to wear the tie because I think the tie looks better. And then you guys can tell I'm in my home office. I got my ceramic beagles behind me. I got my Breitbart Fight Club merch. I got my tiki mug back there. I got all my tchotchkes out here, and I'm like wearing a suit and tie. It doesn't quite work. It's a little incongruous. So I'll be working on this to try to dial in that image for all of you, because you all need to have a dialed in image. The part of the reason why I talk about this when I'm doing the show is because I'm just becoming conscious of some of these decisions that get made in production that a lot of us take for granted, because I know I did. I never thought about these things, camera angles and lightings and which tchotchkes to put on your set. I didn't really think of it a lot until you have to do it. And then all of a sudden you realize it's more challenging than it looks to create a vibe and an aesthetic. So we're dialing it in on the show, but that'll be the big goal, be one of the big goals for the year. All right, here is an email, and I took away the name of the emailer. All right, I'm sorry, but we're still going to read it anyway. The show must go on. Hi, Alex. When I was growing up, we had kids' rooms that was off the church hall. Okay, so this is going to be about my complaints about the Catholic Mass and how it's not accommodating to families. As a preteen teenager, we watched the kids during the service. There was always an adult too, and brought them in after communion for a blessing from the priest. The congregation loved seeing the kids come in, and the parents could concentrate on the most important parts of the service, while the kids were able to be loud or want to run around a bit if needed. So now this is ringing a bell. I definitely had a church. I don't know which one it was. I'm thinking, I think it is a church in LA called St. Paul that did this, where they would segregate the kids, cordon off the kids into a kids' Bible study during the Mass, and then everyone come back together towards the end for a blessing or communion if they were of age. And now I'm realizing that some churches do that, and mine does not. Any of the ones that I frequent in my area, none of them do that. And it's a shame because my kids make a lot of loud noises, and it takes away from the experience for everyone else. And the choices are for me to either go and deal with the noise and the distraction and force everyone else to, or not. And I do think some people like to see them because it just show that we're being fruitful and multiplying. But overall, it does provide a watered down religious experience. So this is something that I'm going to grapple with. It's going to come back on the show because I'm going to ride for this. The Catholic Church is going to reform this, and you're going to be able to trace it back to the Alex Marlow Show. Mark my words, it's going to happen. Anyway, this emailer continues. This was in the 80s, so we missed out a bit, but these days the service could be live streamed, so the caretakers wouldn't miss out on the prayers and the sermon. Just a thought for your church if they don't have something like this already. So you don't need to even have your own church live stream, because I picked this up during the pandemic as I would just watch Cardinal Dolan from New York, and I would watch his service, and that would be how we would do Mass, is we'd all gather around and watch Cardinal Dolan, and that was good enough in a pandemic environment. And it was they did but the problem with that is that you do need to go to the church. First of all, if you believe in the sacraments, then you can't receive communion from home. And there is something about the ritual of gathering as a group, that the church isn't just a building or a set of ideas, it's also a group of people. You do need to gather with that group of people to have the full experience. And it's very addictive to not go and to just do Mass from your living room. But your living room is not a church, a living room. So it is something that I think is a nice alternative when in a pinch, but you go down the slippery slope where that becomes the standard, that I'm just going to watch Mass, or I'm just going to read the Bible passages and say a few Hail Marys and Our Father, and I'll call that church for today. That's not going to that's not going to work in terms of longevity, but a nice idea when in a pinch. I agree. Okay. On another note, you mentioned a pork loin the other day. Do you have a smoker or Traeger? I cooked the pork loin for Christmas, and I did it on, I seared it on my outdoor barbecue, and then I used the oven. And the Traeger is a pellet smoker. So if you're of a certain age, that this is a popular thing. I think what I like about the Traeger is you can use the miracles of technology to dial in the exact temperature of the barbecue, which makes life a lot easier, because part of the fun / hassle of barbecuing, those of you who smoke meat, is you have to dial in the temperature and keep it dialed, because the temperature will fluctuate wildly depending on the fuel, depending on the wood you're using, the coals you're using, the amount that's in there, and all the way it's ventilated, all that stuff. I do not have a Traeger. I heard it's good. Everyone seems to like it, but I've never done anything on a pellet smoker. But it seems pretty convenient for people, and it seems like a good way to do the smoked chicken or pork. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I know what I'm doing. I just don't think the recipe was that good. So it was just, the recipe was sort of so-so, and that was my mistake, was I did not choose a good recipe. Anyway, thanks for doing what you do. I've missed your voice in the air the past year. So happy you are back. I'm getting a lot of that, and that really does mean a lot. Those of you said you missed the shows from my Breitbart News Daily days. I missed the shows as well. I really did. And I love being on and being able to communicate and to have a dialogue and a repartee with all of you, which is why I really like when you email me at aloha@alexmarlow.com. Leave comments. I'm trying to even respond to some of the comments when I can. And I think that is a nice thing. Okay, I've got the name. This was Jackie Thompson sent me that. So thank you, Jackie. I appreciate the email. Very thoughtful. A lot of stuff for me to take on. But that'll be it for today. Tomorrow we will do, I guarantee, a slightly more fun show than terrorism. We'll do some New Year's resolutions. So you got another day to send in your New Year's resolutions at aloha@alexmarlow.com so that I can comment on some of those. And we'll go from there. It is going to be I think it's going to be a crazy year in perhaps a good way, but increasingly, I'm not sure. So the speaker debate starts tomorrow, so we'll have a lot of content for you. This is exciting. Happy New Year from the Alex Marlow Show. Thanks to our producer, Misty. Don't forget to tell 10,000 friends and family members about us, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.